What's up, everybody? Wanted to piggyback and jump on an idea that Grim Nasty was just talking about. He's talking about how to control and create the future and how you can predict and produce a future. And he's explaining how easy it is, especially for somebody that has an artistic vision like he does, left-handed and brain on fire and stares into the sun. And I'm going to talk about sun gazing involved in this and what vision is and how to create a future. And I'm going to tell you what I see when I sun gaze. And let's start with the idea of sun gazing before we get into how to prophesize and how to predict the future. Because the future is really easy to predict. When you sun gaze, here's what I see. I see this really strange thing. Have you ever, whenever something's happening on your computer and it's taking longer to load, you get that little circle that pops up, like say on the Google, and there's something that spins around it. Well, here's what I see. I see the sun, and I see this yellowish white ring around it, just like this. And it goes just like that. It moves in a direction. Let's say, because it's strange. It's like a little bit. It's like white and yellow, and I think it runs in a counterclockwise fashion. I don't recall. I'm pretty sure it runs counterclockwise most of the time, if not always. It seems to be looping that way. Like, now if we get into all the crazy things I talk about, maybe it's reversing time. We get into people that say don't stare into the sun and people that do stare in the sun, and I can unequivocally say that I don't know anyone that has actually stared in the sun that has had anything but amazing, wonderful, extravagant results from it. I haven't heard anyone. I've only heard one person say anything that is to the contrary. But whatever. We all have our own thing. But here's what I'll say about staring into it. There's nowhere that the eyeballs shouldn't be able to look. There's nowhere that you shouldn't be able to see. That's just a concept that you should think about. Like where? Oh, don't look there. Don't look behind that. Don't look into that. You'll go blind. Well, I know certainly that my eyesight has gotten better. That I know that my skin is healthier. So if we start with the concept that everything is bullshit, let's just start there. Everything's bullshit, and everything that you're hearing from anybody with any, well, this is what we're saying on TV about how it's either like half truths, or they don't know what they're talking about, or they're making a little money for it, or they're lying. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but certainly they say, oh, the sun's gonna burn your skin and you're gonna die. When did suntan lotion come out? But how many years ago? And before that, what was happening? People weren't getting skin cancer. So stop the bullshit. That's the point. And the people, like, oh, we have melanated people closest to the sun, all people all over the planet, like, not getting skin cancer. You know why? Because they were from cultures that weren't eating processed food and putting petroleum on their skin. Well, I wonder why you're getting skin cancer. It has nothing to do with the sun. So if you think you're getting skin cancer, then you probably believe that your eyes will get hurt, and your eyes actually might get hurt. If someone was very unhealthy staring in the sun, the injury to their eye would be that they wouldn't be able to see for a while because they'd have so much gunk and junk and funk coming out their eyeballs, because that's exactly what happens with skin cancers. The sun is actually removing all of the waste product out of your system, and it's coming out and looks like cancer. And cancer I'm not going to go into a big diatribe on cancer, but what I will say is if you're somewhat healthy, staring into the sun will only improve your vision. Not only your vision, not only your sight, but your vision. When I see sight, I mean with your eyeballs, what you can see in your vision. I mean what's going on in your third eye, your pineal gland, the waters in your mind. So looking into the sun, the reason people can't do it is because they believe they can't. It's the source of all of life. Animals literally go out into the morning, when it's the morning dew, and they're sitting there and they're staring at the sun come close to them, or over the horizon, depending on how you think that happens. If you think we live in a ball earth or a flat earth, I'm not going to debate that here. But as that happens, as the sun starts to come close enough where the animals can see it, they'll all be out staring at it. They'll just be looking right at it. I wonder why. But they try to convince you that it's otherwise. They can know, well, how come these animals aren't getting skin cancer? Why aren't their eyes going, getting burnt out? Why don't they need glasses? Yeah, so the sun, yeah, the sun that causes life, and plants, like plants have eyeballs. All of the photoreceptors are actually taking the sun in, and the sun is a force of transmutation within the system. And it's a healing and growth mechanism. So it's not hurting your eyes, it's actually helping them. And this is what I see when I see it. So how does that function into helping to predict the future? Well, because the past doesn't exist and the future doesn't exist, the way you predict the future is you design it. You design it. Now, there's a lot of people that, and if you listen to a lot of my talks, I get into so many aspects of magic, and I'm saying this for the people that are new to this and what I'm talking about. Like, there's no way I can get into all that I talk about because there's way too many avenues. There's so much magic and so many different things I talk about. But the concept here is this, that you do this all with your mind. So if you walk down the street, you're creating a reality no matter what. You don't need to write anything down. But some people have the gift and the energy to use a piece of paper to create something so they can envision what's in their mind, put it on paper and look at it, and then multiply the energy and then produce it out in the three-dimensional realm. This is why artists are better at creating realities. And if you look into somebody like, what is his name? He created a bunch of comic books. I'd spoken about him before. Last name is Morrison. Created like some Superman comics, and he does this great video on magic. Grant Morrison, that's what you're looking for. And he talks about how to create sigils, and I have a bunch of videos on sigils and all sorts of different kinds of magic, and how to create egregors and how to create meeseeks, basically, and different kind of things. Now, I choose not, like Manly P. Hall said, there's magic. Here's how all magic works, but don't use it. And this is what he says. And I'm in one sense in the boat that he is, like, because I know that when I go to another dimension, when I go somewhere else, like I don't get to bring all of that with me. I don't get to bring a backpack. I just get to bring my consciousness. So for me, I try to teach I took the hard road, meaning I don't want to have to draw everything out and put it on paper and do all these things. Even though I do to a degree, most of it for me is like I'm training my mind so I can take this all into the astral realms, to my afterlife, so I can teach myself to take my memories through death, as Dan Winter says. That's the only thing that you're here for. But in the meantime, to create a reality while we're here, what you can do is you design it. That's how you prophesize the future. That's how you predict the future. You can predict the future by making it. You make the future by drawing it out. Draw it out. How do you think people start businesses? They draw out the business plans. That's how they do it. There's other people that don't put it on paper and things come to them because they're using the same type of power of the mind, which is their production agency of magic, but just putting it on paper so other people can see what they're talking about. They don't just have to hear it. They don't have to know. They there it is, and put in some letters, and here's some symbols, and this is what it looks like, and then other people take these plans and go forth with it. Like that's like a third level magician, basically. Using paper is a third level. Using words is a second level. Like spells, like I'm going to spell this and speak it. That's a second level. Thinking it is basic level. That's your protease, that's your protein. The original source of information is your mind, so the metaphysician knows that the mind creates everything. So the metaphysician sits and creates with his mind, or her mind. And, I mean, it's all one mind, because a mind doesn't have a sex, or a gender, or nothing. It's just, there it is, it's the mind. So that's how you know everything is one thing. And then we start to write things down. That becomes the second source of material. Or, excuse me, we speak it forth. Because we were speaking before we were writing. So we started going, you didn't come out the womb with a pen in your hand writing something. You came out the womb speaking. Whatever it sounded like. And if it sounded like om, it did. If it sounded like it did. Because that's what babies say. Om, screaming, whatever. And that's the sound that they were given. They were given the vowels to begin with. And they were given the M's. Closing the mouth, open the mouth. O, E, ha, ho, That's what they were given. This is why the first word that every baby says is ma, or om. Ma, om. Because that's what their mouth does. It's just natural. So the first thing we did was thought, then we made our mouth do something, and then we started to pick something up with our hands and then draw with it. So that's a third level. But it's still a way and a resource to create a reality. So to create a reality, you think it first. And then you can choose an avenue of just participating in the thought structure and the thought forms to continue on. If you understand how to multiply energy within a thought with frequency modulation or with amplitude, amperage, that kind of upgrade the energy within the thought, or there's ways of doing that within the mind. And if that's not exactly applicable for you right now, you can choose to speak it forward, because if you think something, you're like, oh, I really want a slice of pizza, right? You could think that, and you could be sitting around a table with some people, and you could be thinking that, but you don't get that. If you're good at it, some people, oh, did you want to, somebody might go, oh, would you like a slice? And they, oh, look at that, I got a slice, right? Oh, you had to think it. And then you could just speak it forth. You go, oh, can I get that, right? Oh, look at that. See, so that it adds a little more power to people that don't, that aren't on a telekinetic system. And I mean, everyone's on that system if you're powerful enough to push the energy out. But since most people don't have that, it helps to speak it. And then the third level is to write it out, because like obviously it's easier to just say something than to like, hey, let me go ahead and write this down and create this way. And I mean, yeah, if you want to create something bigger, usually drawing it is easier than when it's harder, but it's more direct. You draw out plans to a building. You don't write them out. If I was an architect, I wouldn't write someone instructions. I wouldn't say, take a piece of lumber that you've chopped down from a tree that is now in the shape of a 2x4. No, I would just draw it out and put a couple lines and then put a couple numbers, and that would be the symbol for you to build something. So we got rid of that language that I'm trying to use right now that isn't very precise, and I was making it very simple. And just by drawing it, okay, just go build that. And then somebody that knows how to decode that drawing, which is very simple, like, oh, look at that beautiful thing. It's a building. There's an arch there. There's a window there. Okay, and somebody goes and puts that together. So that drawing accomplishes something. So there's prophecy. This is where you get the word profit, to make money. There's energy in prophecy, and prophecy can happen through those three things: through the mind, through the mouth, and through drawing. And there's some other ways beyond that, but those are the three major things. So quite directly, the way to be prophetic, the way to produce a future, the way to know the future is to design it yourself, to be whatever you want it to be. So have fun designing your own future and everybody else's, and I assume it seems to be that everybody would make a wonderful future for yourself and everyone else. Have fun, y'all. Stay awesome.